Hey, hello, and welcome to this episode of Learn Everyday English, your roadway to English proficiency. Hey, it's the day of after the elections here in the U.S. It's Wednesday, November 6th, and Donald Trump won the election and is going to be president again for the second time, starting the beginning of the year. And I wanted to go over 7 reasons why I think that Donald Trump won and why Kamala Harris lost. And these are just my personal views. I haven't really read anything else from anywhere else about this, so I was thinking about this last night and what happened and wanted to share those with you. I know I'd recently posted a video about how the U.S. presidential election is determined, who wins. So I thought this would be a good follow-up to that video. But before I get into this, there's 3 things you can do for me. Remember, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and 3, tell your friends about it so that they can benefit from these videos too, just like you. Remember, I have my How to Talk Texan eBook is out on Amazon. So you can find that there and on other platforms on the internet. And I have links below that you can click on to purchase a book if you're interested. And finally, if you want to buy me a coffee, help support this channel on what I'm doing, bringing you these videos, there's a link below in the description. You can click on that and help support me if you want to. No pressure, though. All up to you. All right, well, let's get going and let's jump into these 7 reasons that I think Donald Trump won the election and why Kamala Harris did not. Well, the first reason why I think the Democrats and Kamala Harris lost the presidential election is that they didn't really effectively address the border crisis and immigration issue sooner and in a manner, or basically sooner. I remember I used to tell my wife, soon as the Biden administration got elected 3-4 years ago, and I would see this gentleman by the last name Mayorgas, who was over the immigration system in the U.S. And I would tell her, hey, I don't really see him doing a whole lot to try to resolve or change or do anything to slow down immigration or to try to make some changes to the process. I know it's a 2-party issue where both parties have to agree, but it seemed like there was something they could do. And I kept telling her, hey, he doesn't seem to be doing much. He doesn't seem to be doing anything. And then we find out this year in the summer, June or July, President Biden passed some type of legislation. He made changes to the policy on immigration, made it not say difficult, but there's a CBP, an app that people wanting to come into the U.S. have to use that app and then make a formal appointment to get an interview to ask for asylum. And that has greatly reduced the flow of immigrants into the country. Basically, they're staying in Mexico, I guess, until they get the call for their interview to come over. But I was like, why couldn't they do that 2-3 years ago? That really would have helped resolve and kind of squash this issue where it just kind of festered and grew over the last 3-4 years and became a talking point. So I think that's one thing that was an error, mistake, and caused a kind of a black mark on Kamala and the Democratic Party. They didn't address the border issue and immigration issue sooner with something like they did and waited until this summer. And I think that hurt them. There's a lot of still misinformation that's being spread about immigrants that's not true, but this might have gone a long way to help with that. The second reason why I think Donald Trump won and Kamala Harris lost was that the Democrats didn't really address the economic crisis issue effectively enough. Because the issue is that we're not the only country in the world that's experiencing inflation, high prices with food and gas. It's a worldwide thing that's happening to other countries. I talk to people, Spanish language exchanges, and my wife has a friend in Italy. All other countries in Europe, Spain, Italy, Central, South America are having the exact same problems, Canada, that we are. So, you can't really blame Joe Biden has caused our problem and our problem all over the world as well. I mean, it was caused by several factors coming out of the COVID crisis, caused a lot of it. There was a supply chain shortage of goods coming out of the COVID crisis. There was a war between Ukraine and Russia, which caused a lot of this, and also the housing market issue, which, no one person can control. But what I've heard is that the U.S. has actually come out of the recession or these problems, inflation, better than almost any other country in the world has. We're doing much better. So that shows that what Biden administration did has done a lot to help this country, U.S., better than almost any other country in the world. But I think the Democrats didn't really talk about this issue or try to explain clearly to the American people what happened and why it's happening and what they've done to help us get out of this situation better than almost any other country in the world. They kind of just closed their mouth and really didn't say anything. And I think that hurt them as well, because the economy, it seems, was the number one concern of most people here in the United States. And number two was immigration. So those two things. The third thing I think that caused Donald Trump to win and Kamala Harris to lose or had an influence was that the Democrats, I want to say, hid Joe Biden's decline in mental faculties and mental acuity and what was going on with him. And maybe they thought, well, we can make this work through the election and then worry about it later. But then when he had that debate with Donald Trump, that really showed Biden's weakness. And I think it was too late then to try to choose another candidate. They didn't have enough time. If they would have been open and honest and reflected and looked at Joe Biden's mental situation and just his ability to go another 4 years, they should have tried to pick another candidate for the party to run on the Democratic ticket. And they did it, and I think that really cost them. They just didn't have enough time. So that was the first three things. The fourth thing, I think, why Donald Trump was able to win and Kamala Harris lost was what I want to call white fear and the rise of Christian nationalism. And I guess this is the position that a lot of white Americans here in the United States, especially the older Americans, see that they are losing their position of power and authority in this country because more and more, minorities are moving here. And especially the Hispanic population is gaining, and I'm not sure in 10, 15, 20 years, the Hispanic population is going to be the majority in the United States, and the white population is going to be in the minority. And they see that everything that they have worked for, they have had in the past, is kind of slowly slipping through their fingers. And they're losing their God-given position of power and status. And also the enemy from within, all these immigrants, illegal immigrants are coming and they're destroying this country. They're stealing the jobs. They're rapists and murderers. And this narrative that's been brewing, portraying all these immigrants and foreigners and minorities as evil has just registered and resonated with a lot of the white people here in this country. And they saw this as kind of like Custer's last stand at Little Bighorn. Hey, we got just one more chance. Donald Trump is kind of our new Messiah. He's going to save us and resurrect the country, make us great again. And he's the only one that can do it. And we got to throw all our support behind him. And a lot of the, not just the Christian nationalists, but the white supremacists have been growing in influence and power. And this was just a coming together of a lot of things aligned. And they came out in droves. They said that in the rural areas, which is predominantly white America, came out and voted for Donald Trump. And that, I don't agree with this, stoking the flames and fire and negatively portraying immigrants in a negative light. But this policy that Donald Trump and his people used worked for them. The fifth reason why I say that Donald Trump won and Kamala Harris lost was a phenomena called gaslighting. It's a technique that's used, and Donald Trump is very good at this. I don't agree with it either, but he used it masterfully. And what gaslighting is it's a technique that's used in a way to gain or maintain control over someone or a group of people. Or another way to say it, it's an act or practice of misleading someone, especially for your own advantage. It's a psychological strategy to create confusion in a person so that they end up feeling as if they are to blame for their problems. And finally, gaslighting happens continually over a period of time. And we saw this, I guess, when Donald Trump was in office, and we've seen this since he's been out of office. He continues to gaslight about everything, like the 2020 election was stolen. That's still a key talking point. We know it wasn't. Over time, so the victim or the people here in the U.S., we start to doubt ourselves and doubt what we were told. Hey, was the election really stolen? You hear that over and over and over and over again. If you can say that convincingly enough as if you believe it, and you tell other people that it's true, they're going to start to question themselves. And they start to believe in an alternative truth or alternative reality, and even begin to start wondering if they're losing their mind. So Trump and his people have been masterful as well at gaslighting. And a gaslighter, key characteristics of a gaslighter is they avoid taking responsibility for their actions, and they shift the blame to others. And this is what Donald Trump is very good at. Hey, I'm not going to take responsibility for January 6th. I'm not going to take responsibility for the cruel and mean things I say about immigrants and war veterans and that type of thing. Hey, it's their fault. It's their fault. They're causing their own problems. Another characteristics of gaslighting and a gaslighter is that they lie constantly. And we've seen this with Donald Trump as well. It seems like, and the problem is he knows that we know that he's lying, but he doesn't care and just continues to lie and lie and lie. And after a while, we become desensitized to lying. We accept it as the norm, and we play it off as it's no big deal anymore. And that's what's happened. If, for example, he was told by the authorities in the city where the Haitian refugees were living that there was no truth that they were eating cats and dogs. And he was told this before the debate with Joe Biden. But what did he do in the debate? He chose intentionally to lie anyway and bring that up and said that they were eating cats and dogs. He lied about the FEMA response to the hurricanes in Florida, saying that FEMA was using the money to help immigrants. And he knows that's not true because FEMA money can't be used for immigrants, but he chose to lie anyway. So it's just this constant lying, lying, lying. And finally, they recall things differently than you. It could be like they say things like this. Hey, I didn't say that. I didn't say that. Or that's not what I meant. That's not what I meant. Or hey, you're just mistaken. You're just mistaken. Or hey, you're overreacting. You're overreacting. Or you're the problem, not me. You're the problem, not me. And they constantly place blame back on someone else. They can't be the problem. So he's masterful at gaslighting. So this also helped him. And people that like what he says, you hear this over and over again, and you start to believe it yourself, or you start not questioning what they're saying. Whatever they say goes, and I'm just going to believe him because he is the only one that can save us. The sixth thing reason I think Donald Trump won the election and Kamala Harris lost is because Trump, again, and his people masterfully used the techniques out of the Authoritarian Playbook. The Authoritarian Playbook. Authoritarian are rulers that like to kind of rule with an iron fist and control everybody, control what they think, what they say. And there's various techniques that have been used over the years in other countries, especially like with Adolf Hitler and fascism, authoritarianism, and totalitarianism. But here are 10 things that are characteristics out of the Authoritarian Playbook. One is to divide and rule, And this is to encourage mistrust and fear in the population. And that's happened in this country. People don't trust each other. We don't trust politicians. We are fearful of what's happening. And if there's one person that we can put our faith and trust and hope in, then we're going to follow that person if he's the one that's saying we need to do that. The second characteristic of the Authoritarian Playbook is that they spread lies and conspiracies. How often do we see that? Hey, there's a deep state. There's a conspiracy. They're trying to take away your guns. They're trying to take away your jobs. They're going to make you not important in this country. You're going to lose everything that you've worked for. And they undermine the public's belief in truth. So there's no truth anymore except for what the totalitarian person is telling you. He has the only truth. You can't believe anybody else. You can't believe the fake news. But you can believe Fox News, right? Even though that they were fined almost $1 billion for telling falsehoods and lies and untruths. The third thing about Authoritarian Playbook is they destroy checks and balances. They quietly use legal or pseudo-legal rationale to gut or destroy institutions, weaken the opposition, and or declare national emergencies to seize unconstitutional powers. So we saw this during COVID. The Department of Health was undermined. The Department of Justice was undermined. Hey, you can't trust the Department of Health. You can't trust the Department of Justice. You can only trust Donald Trump and his people. Number 4, they demonize their opponents and independent media. Hey, the media is the devil. Hey, our opponents are the devil. And they undermine the public's trust in these actors and institutions that hold the state accountable. If we don't have these people holding the state accountable, then the totalitarian person can do whatever he wants. He's going to have ultimate power. Number 5, they undermine the civil and political rights for the unaligned. For example, they actively suppress freedom of speech, the right to assembly and protest, and the rights of women and minority groups. These groups are kind of marginalized. They're deemed as not important. Or Black Lives Matter. Hey, they don't really matter. They're just a group that's just out there, just radicals. And what they stand for, what they want, you can't believe anything they say. Number 6, they blame minorities, immigrants, and outsiders for the country's problems. How often have we heard that? Hey, the immigrants, the minorities that are coming here, they're the real reason the country's in such bad shape. We just need to kick them all out. What's Trump going to do on his first day? I'm going to have the largest immigration ban and kick out all these immigrants on day one. And they exploit national humiliation while promising to restore national glory, make America great again. It's exactly what's happening. They reward their loyalists, people who are loyal and true to them. They give them positions of power in the administration. Elon Musk is going to have a good position. Rudy Giuliani is going to have a position. And they punish the defectors or the people that speak out against him, like Liz Cheney is persona non grata. She needs to be brought before the Judicial Committee and found guilty, maybe even face a firing squad. She needs to be destroyed. And they make the in-group members fearful to voice dissension, and the people within their group are afraid to say anything. Donald Trump can talk about Ted Cruz's wife, call her ugly, and make up stories about his father being aligned with Fidel Castro or Marco Rubio. And these people speak out against Trump when they're running against him, but when they are not in the running anymore, they fall right back in line. They worship at the feet of Donald Trump, and they don't dare say anything against or contrary to him because they fear the repercussions if he gets back in office, because as he says, he's going to take it out on his opponents if he gets back in office. They encourage or condone violence to advance political goals, and they dehumanize opposition and or outgroups to justify violence against them. Hey, if you're in his rallies and there's a non-Trump supporter, hey, kick him out. Hey, we need to beat him. We need to hit him. We need to do something violent. Or the white supremacists that are marching, that were at the Capitol. Hey, I'm not going to say anything negative. Tell them to stop. I'm going to watch what they're doing for 3 and 4 hours. Let them destroy the Capitol. Let them beat up on officers there and cause the deaths and these officers to commit suicide and destroy people's lives. But I'm going to sit back and watch the violence. They're threatening to hang my vice president who sold his soul to me and who was nothing but loyal. And I'm even going to tweet while they're looking for him to hang him, that he didn't have the guts to do the right thing, put his life in more jeopardy, and then not apologize for it. Encourage or condone violence to advance your political goals. They organize mass rallies to keep supporters mobilized against made-up threats. All these rallies that we see Donald Trump. They use fear-mongering and hate speech to consolidate in-group identity and solidarity. Hey, we're the MAGA group, Make America Great Again. Everybody else is against us. And we have to feel fear that these immigrants are coming, or these minority groups, these Black Lives Matters. You need to fear them, but we need to stick together. And finally, number 10, they make people feel like they are powerless to change. Solutions only will come from the top. So it's I alone, Donald Trump, am your savior, your Messiah. I'm the only one that can save you. Stick with me, and I'll bring you back to glory again. So these 10 things are exactly what Donald Trump has done. He's masterfully played from the Authoritarian Playbook, and people are drawn to that. I don't know why. And the final 7th thing that I think caused Donald Trump to win and Kamala Harris to lose. And this is sad but true, but it's a true statement. There are many, many people in this country who can never vote for a lot of people will not vote for a black person. Although Barack Obama did win, they're more easily vote for a black person. But a lot of people these days still won't vote for a black person if there is a white person running. Even if the white person has a lot of flaws, even if they say they don't like the white person, they're going to vote for him anyway. But more so, a lot of people and many people in this country will never vote for a black woman. Never. It doesn't matter who the opposition candidate is, they will just never bring themselves to vote for a black female. And I think that that was part of the cause here. There's still a lot of racism here in the United States, whether people want to admit it or not. A lot of it is covert, underground. And there's also the stigma or stereotype attached to the angry black woman. She's bad-tempered, hostile, overly aggressive. She's a sister with attitude. And people have this preconception about black females and black people in general. Maybe we're not quite as capable, not quite as intelligent, say, as everybody else. And especially black women, it's even worse. They're marginalized more. So I think for all these factors, it made it very difficult for Kamala Harris to win. And it helped Donald Trump to win himself. Now, I'll leave you with two quotes that I heard. One says that, hey, if you can convince people that truth doesn't exist, then you can rule them with naked power. If you can convince people that truth doesn't exist, maybe apart from you, the Messiah, then you can rule them with naked power. And we see that happening here. A lot of people think, hey, truth doesn't exist. accept the truth that is coming from the Messiah figure. And there was a quote I read by a lady by the name of Hannah Arendt, and she was a German-American historian and philosopher. She lived from 1906 to 1975. And she was born into a German Jewish family and lived in East Prussia until she was forced to flee from the Nazis in 1933. She lived in France for 8 years, but then she had to flee from France again from the Nazis as they invaded France, and then she fled to the U.S. So she had seen a lot of the atrocities and heard about it that the Nazis did against the Jews, and how we wonder, how could something like that happen? How could a person like Adolf Hitler rise in power and people just blindly follow him and give them their allegiance and, rat out family members and that type of thing? And she said, she had this quote, "This constant lying, which we see," and I'm saying the constant lying which we see today by Donald Trump, "this constant lying is not aimed at making the people believe a lie, but at ensuring that no one believes anything anymore. We don't know what to believe." She goes on to say, "A people that can no longer distinguish between truth and lies cannot distinguish between right and wrong. And such a people, deprived of the power to think and judge, is, without knowing and willing it, completely subjected to the rule of lies. With such a people, you can do whatever you want. You can do whatever you want." I think that kind of sums up where we are today in this country. And, this people have spoken. We have to accept that and move on. It's what makes this country great in a way, the democratic process and election. It's the vote of the people. So, we all need to accept that. I wish Donald Trump the best of luck, that he can run this country fairly and do a good job, but we'll wait to see what the future holds. So I just wanted to offer my input on why I think Donald Trump won and Kamala Harris lost this election. So what do you think, especially those of you in other countries? I know I speak with other people from other countries. They said they were very much interested in seeing what's going to happen with the election. To be honest with you, almost all of them didn't want Donald Trump to win because they remember what happened when he was president. People in Europe, South America, who I've talked with, because they saw that he wanted to pull us out of NATO and alienate us from our allies. He extolled the virtues and greatness of people like Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un, called Kim Jong-un a good friend, Vladimir Putin a great leader, and he believed Vladimir Putin over all of our U.S. security agencies. He believed the word of Vladimir Putin. And we see that we may pull out of Ukraine, and Russia will have free access to invade Ukraine. And what's next? People in Poland are going to be right near the Russian troops. So they're worried. They're fearful of what's going to happen. So let me know what you think in the comments. Well, that's going to be it for today. Hey, thanks for watching this episode of Learn Everyday English. Remember, like, subscribe, and tell your friends about it. And we'll talk to you later. All right. Bye-bye.